Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary and today's video is going to be my Sorry Picks, my TBR for the month of November. So I believe the last time I played this game was June or July. I think June for my July TBR, but I could be wrong about that. But we're back, baby. I'm gonna try to make a TBR. I'm gonna try to stick to it. I did do 5 card pulls this time, which I think is one more than I normally do, but I have been reading more books recently, knock on wood. Although that could just be because I'm mood reading. So we will see how this goes. I did want to just say that this game I've been playing for a couple years on and off. And if you have questions about how the rules work, it's basically just like the game of Sorry. So if I pull a Sorry card, I have to add another book to my TBR. I start with having, I guess this time I did 5 card pulls. Normally I think I start with 4 and I move around the board. And then if I make it home, I get a reward is how I usually do it. I haven't made it home in forever. And spoiler alert, I don't make it home this time either. That being said, let's jump in to the 5 cards that Sorry picked for me to read this month. Okay, so we are starting off where we left off last time, which I believe was July's TBR. I could be wrong about that. I think that's the last time I made a TBR, but we left off on debut novel. So let's go ahead and pull the first card. Okay, move forward 1. Paranormal. So the first prompt was to read a paranormal book, and for this I picked Dark Lover by J.R. Ward, which is the first book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, which is like a 20-something book series. It's really long. My mother-in-law really likes these books. I believe they're vampire romances, and I believe the majority of them are male-male. I could be wrong about that. I have wanted to read the series for a long time, and I'm excited to finally get around to it. So I am pretty stoked to read this. I know what you're thinking. If you've been here before and you're thinking, why on earth, if you landed on Paranormal, would you not continue in the Suki Stackhouse series since you own some of those books? The answer is, I don't really know. I am more in the mood, I guess, to read Dark Lover than I am to read any of the Suki Stackhouse books. And I just want to read the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I've heard so many good things about it. So many people rave about it. They're not super short either. I think they're like usually 400 pages plus. I'm excited to see if I like them. If I like the first one, I will continue in that series. And if I don't, I can knock like 20 books off of my TBR that I'm not going to read. So that to me is a success either way. Move forward 1 again. Fantasy. Second prompt that I landed on was to read a fantasy book. And for this, I decided I'm going to read Beneath the Keep by Erica Johansson, which is the prequel to the Queen of the Tearling series. It follows some characters that are in the Queen of the Tearling series. It follows them like before the book starts. And before the premise of the Queen of the Tearling series is that this girl, Kelsey, has been kept sequestered by people who used to work for her mother's government. Her mother was the queen of the Tearling, this country, and she has been kept sequestered from like the rest of the world since she was a baby because her mother was assassinated, and to prevent her from being assassinated, they kept her over there, and when she's 19, she's supposed to be able to take control of this country again, and so it follows her as she turns 19, getting to the kingdom, finding out things aren't exactly how she pictured them, and having to like deal with that. It's a really interesting series, but I think her mother is one of the characters that's in the prequel, and so is a member of her mother's guard and a couple other characters. So I'm very excited to read this because I did, for the most part, really enjoy the series. I loved the first 2 books and I loved like 80% of the third book. And then the third book's ending, I was not a super big fan of. I did not really love the way the series concluded, but I am excited to go back, read the prequel, see if it makes sense. Although, I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything for the end of the series. So I am concerned that it's like gonna be like completely detached, which we'll see. Move forward 8. A new author. The third prompt I landed on was to read a book by a new author. And for this, I might change my mind about this, depending on how easy / hard this book is to find, because I don't really know if I want to buy it. But I decided I'm going to try to read Everything I Learned in a Chinese Restaurant by Curtis Chen, which is a memoir by Curtis Chen about growing up in the 80s in Detroit and being a queer person growing up and how that sort of was. It is centered around this Chinese restaurant I think it's Chung's Cantonese Cuisine is what the restaurant is called. And it seems like this is going to be a popular haunt for different people in Curtis Chin's life. And he's probably going to talk about some things about them as well, which I'm really excited about. That's what's in the description, at least. And this book came out on October 16th. So it is a new release, which is why I don't know how accessible it will be for me to read. I've never heard of Curtis Chin before. I've never read anything by him. November is also Nonfiction November, so hopefully at the very least I can read this for Nonfiction November, since a memoir is nonfiction. It is my favorite subgenre of nonfiction, so that is my plan for that book. Move forward 3. Sci-fi. The fourth prompt that I landed on was to read a sci-fi, and for this I actually chose Gleanings by Neal Shusterman, which is a short story collection from the Arc of the Scythe series. I don't know exactly when they're set, but it came out last year or the year before. I don't remember. I think last year is when Gleanings came out. I read the Scythe trilogy for the first time in 2021, and I'm rereading them right now. I love this series. The first book follows Citra and Rowan, who are two teenagers in this futuristic world where humanity has conquered death, and they basically live in this like pseudo-utopian society. And because there is no death, people are still being born, and to curb the population, there is this group of people called scythes, and they are trained in like the ancient mortal age arts of like murder. And so their job is to what they call glean people. And gleaning just means that you die and you don't get revived. You don't come back, you are dead. Otherwise, you're just what's called deadish, which means like if you get hit by a car and you die, they can revive your body, essentially, is the premise. So Citra and Rowan are being trained. They're apprentices to the scythehood, so they're being trained to be scythes, and there's other conflicts that abound, and then the series sort of continues on with that idea in mind. Again, I really enjoy this series. I think it's very imaginative. I really like the characters of Citra and Rowan. I really like the characters that are introduced in the second book in this series, because it introduces some other characters and some other ideas from this world. That's the one I just finished reading. Spoiler for my book Spookoplathon vlog. I just finished that last night. So yes, I'm very, very excited to read Gleanings finally. It's part of the reason I'm doing this reread. There you have it. I can't remember if I usually do 4 or 5 picks for this, so I'm gonna do one more, and hopefully that doesn't screw me up. Move forward 10 or backwards 1. I can't move forward 10, so I have to move backwards 1, and that is a middle grade. The fifth prompt that I landed on was to read a middle grade, and in the theme of trying to complete series that I'm in the middle of, I have decided that I'm going to be reading The Last Olympian by Rick Riordan. Now, I have heard that he is releasing more books in the Percy Jackson series. This is the final book in the original series for Percy Jackson. I know there are like sub-series, like the Heroes of Apollo. I started reading the Percy Jackson series in middle school, right? As I'm sure many people did, at least many people my age. But I was borrowing them from my 8th grade boyfriend, shout out, and we broke up before I finished the series. So this will be my first time reading the last book in the series. That being said, the only book that I have like strong memories from are the first 2. So I don't know if I just never read past those and for some reason I thought I had read more than I did, or if they just weren't as memorable to me or what. But during the reread, I've noticed that like my nostalgia plummets after book 2. So I am excited to finish this book for mainly the reason that I don't want to have to keep reading this series anymore. I thought it's been a long time since I read book 4. I don't think it was this year. I think it was last year. So it's been like probably over a year. I don't think that this is like an all-time favorite series for me, but it's just something that I want to complete just to have a sense of accomplishment. So I am going to read that. Now, those are the books that I picked for Sorry. I'm also participating in 2 readathons in November. The first is that I'm going to be continuing in the Buzzwordathon, which is hosted by Kayla from Bucks and Lala, where she basically gives you a word, a buzzword, if you will, for every month, and then you pick books that you read during that month to try to fulfill that buzzword. It's to help you get books off your shelves is the primary purpose of it. The buzzword for November is good. And for this, I've decided that I'm going to be reading For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. And then I have another book that is tentatively on this because it's also on my Nonfiction November. TBR, spoiler for that, which is in this video, so it doesn't really matter. 9 Lies About Work by Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall. Like Jane Goodall. Anyways, I don't know if that counts, but I searched the word good and that came up, and I was already planning on reading that for Nonfiction November. So it just worked out for me. For Your Own Good is a mystery thriller. I don't know that much about it. I did get my library hold in, so I set it back for 7 days. So hopefully it comes back around. I've never read anything by Samantha Downing. I'm pretty excited to read this book, and I don't know anything about it, and I'm not gonna look it up. So sorry if that bothers you. I like to go into mystery thrillers primarily blind. I enjoy that. That way I sort of get a feel for it as I'm reading. For Nonfiction November, this is a readathon that is hosted every single year. I don't know when it started, but it feels like it's been around forever. So basically the way this readathon works is the goal is for you to read one nonfiction book in the month of November. If you do that, you've completed Nonfiction November, but the premise is for people who don't read nonfiction, for you to read one nonfiction book at least, and for people who do read some nonfiction to really focus in on that and read more than they normally would. So I'm a person who does read some nonfiction, so my goal is to read more than I normally would, which 4 books is more. And they also give you prompts, and the prompts are just words that you can associate with different things, and you can pretty much stretch all the prompts to fit whatever you want, and you don't even have to follow them, but I'm gonna tell you what the prompts are and what I'm reading for each prompt, because I am trying to technically follow this readathon. So the first prompt is fraud. For that, I'm reading 9 Lies About Work, which is a new nonfiction book. It's like a businessy self-help book, I think. I don't really know. I came across my Goodreads at one point. I believe it's new. So I'm pretty excited to read this. Again, I'm also reading this tentatively for the Buzzwordathon in case I don't have time to get to for your own good. That's kind of why I did this. But I did fraud because lies are fraud. So that was my connection there. The second prompt is web. And this one was kind of tricky for me to do because she said you could read nature, science, whatever. So that's sort of what I went with. But you could also do other things in that. I could have done 9 Lies About Work because there's a web of lies, you know? She also said if there's a huge cast of characters or it follows multiple people, that could be a good one. But for this one, I am going to be reading A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. I have read one other Bill Bryson, which is A Walk in the Woods. And I honestly thought it was just okay. I wasn't disappointed in it, but I'd heard so many things about it that I expected more from it, I guess, than what I got. But this one is, it says, A Short History of Nearly Everything. I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be a brief overview of a lot of different topics, and I'm excited about it. So I've heard really good things about this book. I feel like Bill Bryson and Mary Roach are the 2 nonfiction authors I hear the most about on YouTube. You can let me know if there's another one that you always think of. There's also one guy who I read one book by and didn't like, but I can't remember his name. It's Yale something, I think. So I'm really, really excited to give this book a try. I've heard pretty good things about it. The third prompt is capital. And for this, you could either do something about money, I think, because money is called capital in capitalism. It's a thing that is capital. I think that's right. I don't know. I was an econ major, but it's been quite a few years since I've had to take a class on that, and I did not use my degree. So you could also use this for capital cities and reading a biography that's set in a capital city or something like that. So this is very loose, okay? But I'm gonna read Dead Wake. I'm looking at the subtitle. The Last Crossing of the Lusitania by Eric Larson, because I believe it has to do with war, which has to do with places, okay? So listen, I understand that is a pretty big gap to bridge, but I want to read it. So I'm putting it on here. And the last book that I'm reading for Nonfiction November is for the prompt display. And for this, she said you could do something about media or a display on a computer or a screen. You could also do something about putting your life on display maybe. It's just sort of whatever you want to do with these. So I went with Hollywood's Eve Babbitt's and the Secret History of LA by Lily Analik. Excuse me for not being able to read. But this is a biography of Eve Babbitt, who I believe was an old Hollywood actress. And I believe Hollywood's Eve is a flip on her memoir, which is called Eve's Hollywood. So I'm really interested in this one. Again, it's a biography of an actress. So actress, she's on display because she acts in things, and also display because we're putting her on display in this book. So that's where I'm going with it. You can let me know if you think that I've made fair connections or unfair connections. I really don't care because they sort of said you can do whatever you want and you don't even have to follow the prompts. It's just if you need prompts, they're there for you. So that's it. Those are the, I believe, 10 books that I'm planning on reading in the month of November. Let me know if you are participating in any of these readathons that I mentioned and what you're reading for them. Also, let me know if you have read any of the books that I mentioned and how you felt about them. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!